This is quite an auspicious occasion if we consider this to be the inaugural meeting of the Unicorn Circle, or do you think that was last week?
Well, since we were all together when we stated the name of our organization, I recorded that at 5:31. And so we have a horoscope for that moment. I would say that that's the tricky thing about understanding which horoscope to apply to an event, whether this is the birth of a person or a group or an event of any other kind. The thing that we have a tricky sense about is two things, like the moment itself. In other words, were you close to a clock that was telling you the truth? And looking at it at the moment of the event, which defeats most birth charts, because you can't trust that the nurse was regarding the horoscopic accuracy more important than the life of the mother. So you're always able to do a little bit of rectification. If you find the Sabian symbol of the Ascendant isn't quite right, you can sort of say, well, look, the nurse probably wasn't concentrating and you've got a legitimate reason. There are some very strange events when you know exactly the moment itself, but you don't know quite what you're looking for. So, for example, the American horoscope, there's versions of it, not the least of which there were like 30 signatures on the document, as far as I remember. The very large number of signatures on the American Declaration of Independence. So you can't do that in a moment, so you don't know the exact ascendant of the Americas. And in fact, the various charts that they put forward are all different statements, whether they declared that they were going to do it or whether they'd actually declared when they had done it, and doing it is getting rid of the Brits. That's quite a big event, So there are different choices of charts. But here we have the lovely occasion when we first spoke the term, the Unicorn Circle, at 5:31, and I probably wouldn't expect an argument if I said I was the first person to write it down, since it was immediate. So we know exactly where that happened as well. This is an unusual thing. So we've got a very accurate horoscope indeed. And since we're on the subject and I'm looking for something to talk about today, we could continue to talk about this if it's in your interests. So we'll move towards the study of the unicorn chart in a minute. However, I like the fact that we're necessarily focusing once again on space and time. And the altar was meant to introduce our study of space and time in a practical way, because the altar is clearly in a very definite location. So it marks space. And it does have a duration. It comes into being at a certain time of its consecration. And that defines a time, usually a time period. You usually use an altar for a period of time. So by creating an altar, we're sanctifying a particular moment in space-time. And from one level of reality, in other words, that which scientists measure, the moment of space-time, exactly where you are at a particular moment in time, is the only thing that is real on that Earth plane reality. So we're fixed very definitely into a particularity of the Earth plane. There's no confusion about where we are, no doubts about who's where at what time. We're all at the same place at the same time, and sanctifying that moment in a togetherness sense. And that's what an altar does. And even if you're only sanctifying your relationship between yourself and your spirit guides, nevertheless, there's that aspect of marking space-time in a sacred way. So what we have with the horoscope, which of course has been subject to entropy in the last period of time, a horoscope is a very complex sigil. It's a magical formula. If you have no astrological knowledge at all, in other words, you don't know astrology exists, and you come across somebody who picks up a piece of paper and looks at all these squiggly lines on the paper and starts to speak at great length and in great precision about your personality, you will be awestruck. That's if you don't know anything about astrology. Now, there was a time, of course, when people did not know about astrology, and that changed kind of 100 years or so ago, 130 years ago. The Theosophists just about managed to rescue astrology from going down. It was on its way out, having been around for 5,000 years, and they kind of brought it back into popularity and familiarity. And then came the First World War, and then came the Second World War, and it wasn't until the 60s that actually the work of the 1890s Theosophists got taken up by the general population, and the hippies and such people really made it popular, such as myself. And at that time, you had to be really good at figures to work it all out, because there were no computers. And so the type of astrologer, the type of person who became an astrologer, was the type of person that used to think in numbers and could do all that stuff. Now, that's a major factor. And if you look at the writings and the interpretations of that time, you've got a mixture of people that could understand the writings of Alice Bailey and Madame Blavatsky and that kind of person. And they're a rare breed indeed. That does not include me. I couldn't understand a word that the Theosophists were talking about. On the one hand, and on the other hand, you had these people that could actually enjoy working out planetary positions from tables, you know. And we used to read these very thick books called the Ephemeris and work out where planetary positions were, and it was so easy to get it wrong. It was almost certain that every single horoscope reading you did contained a mistake, because 100 years earlier they wouldn't make a mistake. They'd get it right. And then a bit later, computers wouldn't make a mistake. But there was this period of time when people were trying to do this work that didn't really have the guaranteed skill of getting it right. So you couldn't always trust what the horoscope said. You had to use your intuition significantly. And I actually am guilty of the crime for example, in Hindu mythology, if you make a mistake in the time of somebody's birth, it is said to be a worse crime than killing a Brahmin. That's how seriously they take it over there. So I'm guilty of that particular crime. And I remember once interpreting very deeply and profoundly, meaningfully, this position that somebody had of Saturn on their fourth house cusp, and I talked about parental authority, and they said, "Oh yes, James, you really got me right." And then I looked at the chart, and Saturn was not on the fourth house cusp; it's on the fifth house cusp. And I whoops. What do you do? I mean, what can you do? And it was then I kind of realized that the mechanics and the mathematics of astrology are actually not primary. The primary thing is the empathic relationship you develop with a client. Having looked at the horoscope, you get into this headspace. You've married your mind with all of these magical symbols. So when I look at a symbol of Neptune, I get into this Neptune space. And if I look at Pluto, I get a bit more serious, you know. And I can feel my body shift. And there's like Mercury. Oh yeah, I want to figure out Mercury. And there's Venus, like, you know, and it does that to me. And that's one way in which astrology works. I think there may be other ways for more mental people who have not the empathy or intuition or whatever. That I think we all have it. I don't think we all trust it. And I think part of our work together as a group is to learn how to trust our intuition. And what I'm going to do now is to kind of help you start that process or trigger that process more deeply within you, because I'm going to ask you to do something which actually you can't do, you're not ready to do. There's no way that you can interpret an astrology chart unless you've studied a lot of astrology. So how many astrologers have we got here? How many people would call themselves astrologer? Just me. Oh, Silvana. Okay. And Alvaro a bit. Okay. So we have some. All right. What I'm going to do though is look at this chart together and just write down at the beginning, not interpretations. All right, let's get this very clear. At the beginning, I want you to just notice the facts of the matter. So, for example, I'll start you off. I'm seeing a chart here. And the first thing I look at is the sun's position. Somebody tell me where the sun is.
30, 29 degrees Scorpio in the 6th house.
The sun is in Scorpio in the 6th house. Okay. What do we know already? Do we know anything?
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Just feel it for the minute. Just ask yourself that question. What do we know? We know we're talking about a group of people, not an individual. We know the sun sign for that group is in Scorpio. Now just remember your body feelings associated with Scorpio. Water. This is a watery group. Fixed. Deep water. Scorpio. We all know the reputation of Scorpio to some extent. Some of us might understand that that's because its ruling planets are offers. Alvaro?
Pluto and Mars.
Pluto and Mars are the ruling planets of Scorpio. So just stop there for the minute. We've not even looked at the house. A group whose central essence is deep water. And we're awakening Pluto energy and the energy of Mars. Wow. You know, haven't we come a long way in the last minute? Because we do it in this way, sacredly, with respect, with slow appreciation of all of the mystery contained within that fact, we haven't even begun to interpret things. I've just mentioned fact, fixed, water, sun, Pluto, Mars. No interpretation there. That's all somehow already within us as inner knowledge that we don't have to think about. We've got this feeling relationship with this knowledge. So if we approach all of our magic, not just astrology, all of our magic, with this awakened sensitivity, and we approach a person with that awakened sensitivity, we get them on some deep level, then what happens is we move our own acuity, our own ability to know things to the next dimension, really, whatever that means. Add in the 6th house now. This is where we will operate. The house system is less well defined than all the rest of astrology, so there's some ambiguity, but I think most of us know that the 6th house has its own meaning. So before we go further into the chart, would anybody like to offer a single word or a couple of words by way of interpretation of the sun in Scorpio in the 6th house? Yes, Katrina.
It's healing and in a transformative way.
You're allowed 2 words. Transformative healing. Alvaro,
Deep work.
what was the first one?
Deep.
Deep
work.
work.
Deep work.
Lovely. Yes, Mandy.
Service to secret knowledge.
Service to secret knowledge. That's lovely. Actually, you're writing these down, Richard, are you?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Rebecca.
It's the word deep for me as well. That feels very resonant. So I'm just going to say depth.
Deep. Yeah.
It's a regular work.
What was the first? Irregular or regular?
Regular. It's a regular effort.
Okay. That's 6th house. It's not much Scorpio in that, is there?
Yeah, that is 6.
So put a watery image in there or a Scorpio image in there as well. All right, I'll come back. Somebody else?
I would say like the task of excavating. Like I always think of like the detective with Scorpio, so like uncovering. So the task of that.
Did you say excavating? And
Yep.
the first
Task.
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 Task. I'm sorry, the voice quality isn't good. The task of excavating. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so pause for thought. Call out the names there, Richard. The keywords:
Transformative healing, deep work, service to secret knowledge, deep again, regular work or effort, and excavating detective tasks.
Okay. That's quite something, isn't it? If that's what we're saying is the essence of what we have decided to do as a group. And let's look a bit more deeply into that. We started with the sun in Scorpio in the 6th. Can somebody else tell me what they would look for next?
The ascendant.
Okay, we'll go for the ascendant. 15th degree of Gemini. Let's stay with that image for the moment. I incidentally would not have done that, just as a matter of interest. It's not my second most important thing to look for, but it is for some people, so we'll go with it. What does the ascendant in Gemini itself suggest to you? First of all, what does the ascendant mean for you first?
Personality.
And in the context of a group, Mandy?
What it is that we're putting out to the world.
Yeah, very good. That personality is the interface between who we are for real and the world out there. So applied to a group, it would be something to do with our image or what outsiders would see when they looked at us. You know, perhaps something like that. I don't know what to call it, but that's what it is anyway. Our image in the world. Okay. Any other ideas of the ascendant?
This is this
Again, please.
a group who communicates
Because it's in Gemini, yeah, it's a communication. Let's stay with the image of the ascendant as such before we start interpreting Gemini. What else is the ascendant?
It's Mercury here. Okay, no.
Again, into the Gemini image.
Yeah, but
Yeah, who we are.
Again, please.
Who we are. No, the word for the first house is I am. No.
yeah, expression, the first expression.
I like expression better. I think who we are is much more to do with the sun in Scorpio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the expression of that is
the
the ascendant.
expression.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
And let's also take into account when we're talking about the ascendant that there exists necessarily a descendant. So when we're talking about our approach to the world, we're also talking about the shadow we cast as well. So let's look at the word now, Gemini. How does Gemini influence our sense of ascendant? How does that make you feel to think that we've got a Gemini ascendant?
It makes sense. I mean, it's ruled by Mercury, and we're talking.
Yeah.
And we are different. We are
Different what? From who?
different people together, different ideas, different expressions in one. We are.
All right. Yes, Alvaro.
Well, it has to do with Hermes, the god, as well, and with all the Hermetic tradition in that sense, but with the trickster as well, no, which is Hermes as well. So, and if we link it with the Scorpio, I see it as in his form as a psychopomp, no, the one who goes down with the souls, no.
And with what?
With the souls. Well, the psychopomp, when Hermes walks together the souls of the dead to go to Hades.
Okay.
No? Yeah.
Okay. Whoa. Any more to say about the ascendant or the descendant?
Descendant to Sagittarius, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Well, I really like how that polarity, Gemini being the local. So we're localized on Zoom here, but yet the Sagittarius polarity is like worldwide. We're all worldwide.
Yeah.
And it's just the symbol of the unicorn. The Gemini is the dual, the twins, whereas Sagittarius is the one pointed, the arrow. There's the unicorn horn in that Sagittarian arrow.
that's great.
Mm.
I think that the unicorn point is the crux point between Sagittarius and Capricorn. Myself, I've always thought of it as very, very specific. So yes, there is a Sagittarius aspect to it. And I like the idea that there's this sort of localized talking going on here, and yet what we cannot see is global and possibly far-reaching. You know, none of us know the effect that we're having here. I suspect that it's more than we can imagine. Yes, Peter.
Well, Gemini is an air sign, and air is invisible. Apart from being communication, but just its quality is invisible.
Yeah, we're not very structured, are we? We kind of come together and then we go off, and there isn't anything left, is there? There's no physicality to us. In that sense, it's very airy. But there is the invisible aspect of the hidden aspect of Scorpio to consider as well. You know, Scorpio is hidden, and Gemini is invisible in that sense. Okay, let's see if we can find something else. Somebody else offer a contribution.
I would be looking for the moon position.
Yeah, what do you see?
The moon, the 12th house, Taurus.
Okay, moon in Taurus in the 12th house. Let's just start with moon in Taurus. What do we know about the moon in Taurus?
Fixed.
Huh?
Fixed Earth.
Fixed, yeah, it's the Taurus is the fixed sign, but the moon is exalted in Taurus.
Taurus.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Yes. So there are planetary rulerships of all of the signs. So Mars rules Aries, but there's an exaltation as well. So as the moon rules Cancer, it's exalted in Taurus, which means it's probably better off in Taurus. I can't imagine putting the moon in a better sign than in Taurus, but then I've got a moon in Taurus. So. What's the moon in Taurus all about?
Deep feeling, deep perception.
Yep.
Emotional comfort.
All five senses activated, sensuality. And since it's in the 12th house, it's in Pisces house.
Not yet. Let's first understand what we're talking about before we start talking about it.
Okay.
I want to reintroduce that idea again and again and again, because one of the things that astrology has been spoiled by, did you hear me emphasize that word? Spoiled by. I want you to notice that I think very strongly on this topic. One of the things that has spoiled astrology is that astrologers keep on trying to interpret something without knowing what the something is. You know, they go and they say, oh, my Ceres is conjunct my Iris in the 9th house. Like, they don't know what Ceres is. They don't know what Iris is. They don't know what the 9th house means. Whereas if we just steadily go down and get it on a physical level, we know more than any mind can tell us. As I've just demonstrated with our knowledge of the sun's being in Scorpio, we felt that changed the whole atmosphere of the group, didn't it? Very quickly, very deeply, because we felt it. Yet, if you just try and have the ideas, you won't get that. And the moon in Taurus doesn't really know anything that it cannot feel. It won't trust its head, its mind. It will only trust its body. It's physical, it's Taurus. It's as slowly earthy as you can get. It's fixed earth. And it's the moon. So let's look now at what we mean by the moon. I'm not talking about a person. I'm talking about a group. And it's not airy-fairy. This is the group that we're talking about. So what is the moon? What do we mean when we talk about the moon sign of a group? Any contributions?
It's the feminine aspect, maybe.
One would hope so. What might that be? What is the feminine aspect of the group?
Receptivity, emotionality.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
I hear the words. I've studied the same books as you have, but what does it mean? What's the receptivity?
Depths and landscapes that we traverse through our senses and our feelings and our physical body.
Okay, that's what the moon means. How do we apply that to the group context? Could that, yes, Savannah?
Even how we are doing this exercise now, and you're asking us to feel into each planet, like it's the embodiment of what we are doing.
Great.
That's,
yeah. I tend to slow things down, don't I? And because of that, there's this inclination towards feeling something emphasized, and that's what Silvana's just made known to us. And you know, I mean, for the group to have a moon in Taurus and for its founder to have the sun, moon, Mars in Taurus, that doesn't take a leap of intuition to realize that it's going to be done my way. You know, it's going to be slow and steady, or I'll get, you know, if things happen more quickly than I can understand them, I won't have it. You know, it's not as though I get twitchy or insecure or confused. I just won't have it. Stop, I don't understand where we are. Stop so that I can understand. You know, that's who I am. And I think that is present within your understanding of how this group must be. It's already been made clear in how I'm approaching magic. We haven't dived into spell making or rituals very quickly, have we? We're discussing the name and we're discussing what magic is, and we're saying, are we sure you understood that properly? Let's discuss it all again, you know. So this is grounded, isn't it? There's this grounded feeling. That's the moon in Taurus. So please, Katrina, tell us what you feel the 12th house adds to this moon.
It adds one more dimension, this watery dimension, which is very deep emotion, and it very much helps our sun.
Okay, let me just discuss with people what you feel is meant by the word emotion and what you feel about the word feeling. Are they the same thing for you or not?
No, feeling it's just it's feeling. It's using your body as a radar, using your whole body, and emotion is just, I think it's connected more with the mind.
All right, let's work with that. Would you say moon in Taurus is more to do with emotion or more to do with feeling?
In Taurus,
yeah,
it's a feeling.
Yeah, and we need to correct the assumption that moon in Taurus isn't emotional. I mean,
No.
It really isn't. Its emotions exist in a very slow and profound way, and can actually be as emotional as anyone else, perhaps even more extremely so if it's backed up by something like Mars. But you wouldn't call a moon in Taurus person emotional, because everybody else is more so. It's not the moon in Taurus is not emotional, it's everybody else is more so, you know. So apart from moon in Capricorn, just say that. So no, the moon in Taurus is not emotional, but it feels as much as there is to feel, because it's got its physical body there for the task. Now in the 12th house, using that level of feeling in the 12th house, what do you think we will be able to do when we employ that energy?
Be extremely empathic and compassionate.
Empathic, I absolutely agree with. Where do you get compassion from?
Compassion, I think it's when you become very empathic, then this compassion is just the way of understanding, the way you understand other beings and become as one with others.
Lovely. I think we all affirm that. I think that our empathy will be directed towards compassion. But I think you can also be empathic without being compassionate. I think quite a lot of manipulative people can read others and take advantage of them very quickly because they're very empathic. So in our context, yes, I'll go along with the compassionate interpretation, yeah. Okay, so Pauls, we collectively have got the sun in Scorpio and the moon in Taurus. Are they in opposition? Would you call this opposition? 26th degree of Scorpio, 19th degree of Taurus. Is that an opposition for you? Close
it's a
enough?
bit broad, but it is, no?
It is.
Yeah.
What would this mean if you went out after dark? What would you see?
The full moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you wouldn't see anything else. There'd be this great big ball of light in the sky that's announcing to us all that it's the full moon, and it keeps going all night pretty much. You know, it's a big deal, the full moon. I don't know if you remember it. I do. I as soon as the group finished, I went out and the full moon was, I face, my cottage faces that direction. So there it was, the full moon. And it's like, yeah, that's nice. Full moon in Scorpio Taurus. Has anybody ever done a ritual on that time? I've celebrated this from time to time, and it happens quite often in May, of course, the Taurus Scorpio kind of moon, although it's the opposite way around. But when the sun and the moon are both in Scorpio and Taurus, then there's something quite profound. You must have done this, Mandy, I'm sure.
I was born on it.
There you go. So you've got this, how close is the conjunction? I haven't got your chart up at the moment.
My sun's at 19, my moon's at 27.
Oh, wow. Can I bring up your chart to show people?
Sure, but that's why I'm loving what we're doing today. I love the connections with my own chart. It's beautiful.
If we see, am I sharing? No, I'm not. So if we see Mandy's chart now, the moon is exactly opposite the sun in the group chart, and her sun is exactly opposite the moon in the group chart. So she has the same sun-moon opposition in Scorpio Taurus as we do in the group. Very accurately indeed. So she was born on the full moon in the month of Scorpio in her year of birth, and we were born on the full moon in the month of Scorpio in our recent month of birth. That's, you know, Mandy's very resonant with the group, she's just said, and what we're doing now, you know. We've also, I think what I would like to do is to how do we say, change our understanding, add to our understanding of the sun. When you're looking at the sun in this chart, look around for what aspects it's making to any outer planets. Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. Can we see anything?
Yeah, with Pluto.
The aspect is called?
That's a square, no?
A sextile, that one.
Sextile. It's a sextile, yeah.
The blue line, two feminine signs, it's a sextile.
Yeah.
Square Jupiter.
That may be the closest aspect. I was mainly concerned at the moment with the outer planets. We've got a trine to Neptune. Let's just discuss that. I have studied something called karma and dharma aspects, and I've done a little video on that. And the idea is that when the sun or the moon is aspected to one of the three outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto, that is the central motivation, central defining essence of who we are. Almost everyone, there are some exceptions, but almost everyone has got a dharma aspect. So in our case, the closest aspect is either a sextile to Pluto, which is around 2 degrees of orb, or a trine to Neptune, which is around 6 degrees of orb. Not awfully close, but both present. And the square to Jupiter, which Mandy noticed, is also something to think about. So these factors change the nature of our expression of the sun. If we go back to how we were feeling when we were just talking about Scorpio, there was this deep, fixed wateriness. We were feeling it and going nowhere with it. But with these aspects, we'll be drawn into relationship with something that represents those planets. So there will be a Pluto influence coming along, and it will be by sextile. Now that's good, isn't it? Because sextiles are probably the best aspect of all. They're easy and you can choose whether you operate them or not. So that's perfect for Pluto. I mean, I'd rather have a sextile to Pluto than anything else, really. You can just turn it on when you want it on and turn it off when you want it off. It's brilliant. Our trine to Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is in its own planet in Pisces. So the trine between the Sun and Neptune in Pisces, that seems to be obvious in the sense that we're a spiritually motivated group. And Katrina just made the assumption that we were into compassion, which is quite right, we are. But it's probably because we're sort of trine Neptune that's an assumption rather than a definition. Most groups form to make money or to achieve results. You know, they're soccer groups, you know, sports groups or something. Most groups do not get together to bring more light into the world. So we've got that trine with Neptune. So what about a Sun square Jupiter? How would you say that changes things? Just think about Sun and Jupiter together now without thinking about the square. What's Jupiter going to do to something? It's going to make it bigger.
Open our awareness.
Well, that would be nice. But I mean, the first thing it's going to do is going to make us grow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Jupiter's main principle is growth. It doesn't have conflict. It just grows bigger than the thing that it's different from. That's its sense of expansion and integration. And that can go badly wrong in some cases. You don't trust a Pisces person with Jupiter, for example. You know, they have not got the control. They want Saturn more. So what are we going to do if we've got a Sun-Jupiter aspect? What does that suggest to you?
The way in which we are going to grow.
Well, I mean, let's first say growth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that suggests growth, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The aspect is possibly to do with the way in which we're going to grow. The aspect is the square. So if we know that we're going to grow, and yet we want, well, we do affirm that we want that to be with some square significance. What does the square add to this?
Tension.
Tension, yes, but what does that mean?
Effort, maybe effort.
Effort, indeed. Peter?
Structure.
Structure, good.
Obstacle.
Obstacles, possibly. Obstacles tend to arise if you deny the square. Think of the movement required. If there's ice, you can't go uphill. But if there's friction, you can. Ice is like the sextile. Well, not so much the sextile as the trine. The trine is like ice. You can't achieve anything because you just go sliding around having a good time. But if you've got a square or opposition or quincunx and stuff, then that's friction. So you can actually climb. It doesn't have to be an obstacle unless you consider going up. An obstacle, the obstacle is gravity that you're overcoming. So we don't have to affirm obstacles. Let's remember that we're creating our future as we speak. So structure, yeah. Anything else? Would there be caution? That fits with the square, doesn't it? I mean, we might put obstacles in the way of other people joining us. There might be an interview process so that you can't come in unless you're right, you know. And of course, that is the case. Not everyone can join the group. There's a very definite process by which people get to be invited. So that seemed, yes, Peter.
I was going to say the square is also a symbol for the earth, so maybe you could put grounding as well.
Yeah, I think structure, grounding, they kind of speak to me of the same kind of intention to get it right, not to be willy-nilly. This isn't a festival where you come, you pay your money, have a good time, and then you go, and if you don't come back, oh well. It's not that kind of growth. You know, this is a kind of growth where, first of all, we make sure that we are solid in who we are. If somebody doesn't fit the group, well, we'll deal with that. We'll frighten them off or do something. Settle into the group so that we know that this is kind of what we want to do. Make a commitment to do that. Give ourselves a name. Take ourselves seriously, and then say, right, well, we might be able to add one more person, maybe another one. You know, we'll just slowly kind of grow on the foundations of what we've already established. That feels to be the way forward, and that ties in with both the sun in Scorpio and the sun square Jupiter. I would say Scorpio is far happier taking little steps forward, making sure that everything is hunky-dory before they go to another one, wouldn't you? Seems like the Scorpio way forward. Okay, so not only the sun in Scorpio, but the sun in Scorpio is strongly influenced by both Pluto and Neptune, although in a gentle way, not in the face kind of way, but a square with Jupiter, which suggests that if we're careful and we structure ourselves properly, then we will grow. I want to draw your attention to the midheaven now. Saturn in Aquarius in the midheaven. What do you think about that? Good or bad, intuitively?
It's an exact conjunction, no? They are in the same degree at 8.
Yeah, very close.
I believe it's very good, no? Well, Saturn also rules Aquarius, well, in ancient astrology.
Sure. Saturn's comfortable in Aquarius. On the midheaven, how come Saturn on the midheaven is good?
Saturn rules the 10th house.
Saturn rules the midheaven. Thank you, Mandy. Katrina's got something to offer?
Yeah, and what I wanted to say. And Aquarius as a sign is connected with the task I think we might do in our group and concerning the world.
I'm talking about Saturn at the moment. We'll come to Aquarius.
And Saturn will structure our work and give it seriousness.
Structure, seriousness, yeah. This is not airy-fairy. This is the real deal, isn't it? What about the word authority? Does that matter?
It will be very responsible. And
I use the word authority. You use a different word.
Okay, sorry.
I'm going to say, yeah, everything I'm speaking from is intuition because I don't know anything about astrology, but it feels important. It feels that there is a sense of authority governing our coming together. As long as it's from a just place, which I believe it to be, it feels vital. That's my feeling.
Okay. Oliver?
Authority, definitely, but with a sense of freedom, no? Because Saturn in Aquarius got to do with that, no?
And what Rebecca has said is that we are subject to an authority. Is there any sense in which we could become an authority? That is clear to me, and Rebecca's agreeing. Does anybody else have that sense that that is a possibility, Peter?
Yeah, if it's the midheaven, that's more or less what it's saying, more indicating.
Absolutely, yeah. And Katrina, now talk about the Aquarius aspect, Saturn and Aquarius on the midheaven.
Yeah, well, I wanted to add this word responsibility for our work and connection with the humanity, because it's Aquarius is sharing, is a very sharing sign, and with the Saturn there, it's sharing in a very responsible and as I said, structured manner. And it's like Saturn is also a karmic aspect of our work. It's like it's
What does that mean? What does karmic?
It's our duty.
To whom?
Saturn in this chart shows our duty. Where is
Yes,
it?
I heard that, but I'm asking duty to whom?
Duty to both, to ourselves and to those who will, and where we will work, to the world.
I haven't yet been persuaded that there is a higher authority governing the group. I think what we've done is invoked the unicorn because we've chosen to have that as our guide and authority. Is that the duty that you're talking about? Duty to the unicorn? You spoke of duty to the world.
Yeah, and I said duty to the group. It's duty to the unicorn as well. Yes, duty to the unit to embody the meaning of unicorn, the symbolism of unicorn.
I'm much more comfortable with that. I refute any duty that I have to humanity. I don't. Humanity has a duty to me. I can see that part of things. But if I want to serve, then I want the opportunity to serve. If I want not to serve, I want the opportunity not to serve. And I don't require anybody telling me what my duty is. So I think that would be highly irresponsible of me to follow the teachings of that kind, which were introduced by priests, basically.
No. Yeah, it's duty to unicorn. I take my words back then.
I'm very happy to have a duty to the unicorn. Yes, Loic.
I have my Saturn in Aquarius in my midheaven. For me, how I resonate with it is always being at the cutting edge of consciousness, always trying to, and the authority really, the group authority, the willingness for me to somehow has a community, a communal authority that is agreed upon, that I agree on. I agree at this, to share this authority, but it comes from me first, and then I'm sharing the authority with the group. And I'm also in the group is listening, because somehow there is an aspect of always being at the cutting edge of consciousness that the group is able to look at. So that's how I put my Saturn in Aquarius.
Well, that sounds good to me. That sounds wonderful. I like that idea of the fact that we have collectively elected to be guided by the unicorn, and therefore if we have that sense of duty and responsibility, it is focused through the unicorn, and whatever the unicorn is, which is quite mystical and not definitive, it's not dogmatic, whatever we choose collectively and individually for the unicorn to mean, to align ourselves with that in service and duty. I think that's very wholesome. And it seems in keeping with Loic's personal interpretation of the Saturn and Aquarius image. Peter.
Yeah, that connects to what somebody brought when we decided on the unicorn, talking about the horn being sort of located at the point of the third eye. What Loic brought about this cutting edge of consciousness, you know, of this sort of this point of perception, which is the unicorn's horn.
That's lovely. Yeah, I think that's really profound. I've started to shiver when I'm hearing this. You know. Always a good sign, isn't it? You start shivering. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so let me bring your attention to an aspect that the moon has. What's the most important aspect that the moon has, apart from its opposition to the sun?
opposite Mercury.
Okay, we can look at that. I was also thinking of the outer planets, you know, the karma aspects are the connection between the sun or the moon and any of the three outer planets. So we've got a conjunction between the moon and Uranus. We've also got a trine between the moon and Pluto. And a kind of semi-sextile, which we can ignore perhaps.
Yeah.
So let's look at Moon-Uranus conjunction. Any feelings about what that might be? Let's build up towards an understanding of how does Uranus feel when it's going through Taurus? If you were Uranus and you had to go through Taurus, what would you feel about that? Yes, Oliver.
I actually like to see Uranus more like Prometheus, no? So it's like Prometheus bringing all the fire, the sacred fire to humanity, to the earth, no? Because Uranus just wants to be, well, the god just wants to be left alone, no? In his clear skies.
All right.
So for me, it's like, yeah, bringing something of great relevance to.
So when Uranus comes into Taurus, it becomes Prometheus.
Yeah.
But if you get your head into being Uranus, like, you know, you're just an electric lightning bolt, and you just move spontaneously in any direction, not in a straight line, not in rhythm. You're just firing off. And you know, now you have to go through Taurus.
What, trapped?
Trapped, absolutely. God, I should think. When Uranus gets into the first degree of Gemini, it's just going to go whee, and it's going to be building up its terrible, torturous fear of moving out of Aries 84 years later. You know. I can't imagine how Uranus can ever put up with getting into Taurus, you know, like, wow. It must be so frustrated and like angry and, you know, we can see this in the newspapers, can't we? If you used to have newspapers. No, Uranus does not enjoy Taurus particularly well. And you have cracks in the system appearing sometimes. Doesn't like any of the earth signs. Well, Capricorn it doesn't like. Do you know when Uranus went in the first degree of Capricorn, the Tower of London developed a crack in it. A symbol of colonial authority for centuries just cracks open. That's what Uranus thinks of earth signs, and Taurus is worse. It brought about fascists, the uprising of the Nazis in the 30s. It's done that again, hasn't it? We thought we defeated fascism. You know, we didn't. It's come back. Uranus is in Taurus at the same time. And it's no joke. It's not going away. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Like it was back in the 30s, you know. Uranus does not like Taurus. You know, our banking structure is like crashed open. The economy is ruined by COVID. Uranus has gone into Taurus. It's just ruined the economy. You know, however much we think about what the long-term benefits are, it's crashed our sense of stability and security. There's 30% more suicides. Everyone's really not very secure. They're not happy. You know, okay, so that's Uranus in Taurus. Now, our moon in Taurus is just crossed over Uranus. How do you feel about that? How do you feel the moon would be in the presence of a frustrated Uranus in Taurus? Bearing in mind it's a moon in Taurus. Peter.
Very uncomfortable.
It would do its maximum version of discomfort, wouldn't it? For sure. Yeah. More than any Pluto transit, typically.
Maybe that could say this electric feelings, this sort of just really electrified feelings of not being able to sort of get into deep feelings, being sort of anyway.
However, it is the moon in Taurus. Natasha has a moon in Taurus. I have a moon in Taurus. Mandy has a moon in Taurus. Oh, you have a moon in Taurus?
Yes.
A man who works permaculture, you know. It's more obvious in Mandy and Natasha and me, maybe, but look at the four of us with Peter as well. Peter's got this Virgo quality of mutability, whereas Mandy, Natasha, and I are fixed sun signs as well as moon in Taurus. So just look at the three of us, Natasha, Mandy, and me. Fixed sun signs, moon in Taurus. Oh. This Uranus transit's a bit inconvenient. Oh, thank goodness that's gone.
Counting.
Yeah, I mean, look, Mandy's just allowed herself to smile a bit at that, and Natasha's just kind of done the same thing. We just don't move. Nothing can move us. You know, we put up with it, and nothing really disturbs us very much. We might be going through it internally. You know, I'm seriously upset at the moment. I'm bordering towards irritation. If you keep on hitting me so hard, I'm going to be a bit angry with you. Now, could you please stop? Peter.
Can I ask you, you guys, how's your intuition going? You feel sort of more stuff sort of coming to you that you're picking up on the air?
I'm right in the middle of creating this work, aren't I? I mean, that's what I've done with it. The unicorn circle is an arising of my moons in Taurus passing over Uranus, I suppose. What was it like for the other two, Natasha and Mandy?
I've just had, I'm in the midst of the opposition to my, I've got Mercury at 12 degrees Scorpio and Neptune at 13 degrees. So it's just opposing both of those at the moment. And I've really reached out in community online. I'm involved in three groups focused in higher consciousness or spirituality. Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Pretty
Yep.
much. Exactly the same. Natasha, anything happened to you? Context.
I feel that energy like electricity and feel of many ideas, fresh ideas, different ideas, and they give me feeling I'm alive, and I bring it in my body, and every chills I feel it energy, but I stay with that very stable, and I can take it and bring it some insights bring to the form.
That's great. I mean, that's it, isn't it? That's Moon Uranus conjunction in Taurus there. You know, this sense of electrical energy, this sense of many thoughts, this sense of intuitively knowing that it has to be brought into the physical world, which I feel Natasha's just expressed it. Mandy's,, by intuition, she's sort of doing the same thing with these groups. I feel that, you know, this sense of electrical energy, this sense of bringing intuitive knowledge to bear. How about you, Peter? I mean, with the moon in Taurus, you feel this sense similarly to us, or is the Virgo sun making a big difference in your interpretation?
No, I'm also connected to various communities online, which is something I've never done before in my life. I've sort of used a computer for various different things, and most of the groups are all developing some sort of intuitive communication between the people, like here, which is something for me is a wonderful thing.
Okay, good. All right. You wanted, Mandy, to bring our attention to the moon opposing Mercury. What would you say about that?
Subtle intuitive messages, really. Heightened messages, communication.
Yeah, it kind of underlines the moon-Uranus conjunction somewhat. It makes it a bit more easily able to bring a workaday communication attitude towards these higher messages. It seems to be a positive thing. And I like the fact, in this case, that we've got the Mercury and the moon in opposition rather than conjunction, because the moon Mercury sort of senses. Mercury is much more mind, moon is much more body and feelings, and to have them in juxtaposition in a person, it might be a bit awkward, but in a group, it seems to be thoroughly healthy. It brings about a sense of different points of view. It opens up the debate, doesn't it?
For me, the opposition being like another, I keep coming back to the idea of this Taurus moon embodiment and like how I feel when I'm in this group. And there's this like Uranian changes happening, but it's happening through communication that's happening, like other people are speaking and I'm embodying it. The feeling, and like it's happening suddenly in this Uranian way.
I'm sure that applies to some of us, if not all of us. That general idea that we're actually going through some changes on behalf of the others. This is how group consciousness is kind of developing, where some one person moves through a state change and communicates something, and that enables somebody to do the same thing. And then we're all resonant and we kind of go through a shift to a new dimension of consciousness collectively.